Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we are looking at Arturia plugin and we're looking at the Wurli V. Now, as the name suggests, the Wurli V is based off the famous Wurlitzer electric pianos, and is basically uses kind of an algorithm to emulate what these electric pianos do. Now, without going into too much detail and boring you with what a Wurlitzer is, that is a very common instrument most people might know. But if you don't, it was basically an electric piano based off, I think, mallets hitting metal kind of reeds. Much similar to the Rhodes, but they sound different. And basically there'd be a pickup that would pick up the sound of the hitting these reeds and give you that electric piano sound. So this is what Arturia are emulating in the Wurli V, and it's got heaps of really cool features and such as well. Now, I know I do a lot of free plugins, and of course this one isn't so cheap. I do have the Arturia collection, and they aren't cheap, especially individually. As a collection, they are a bit cheaper, but that is because they have so many features, and we're going to try and dive into a lot of them. Now, I am not a great piano player. There is many people out here that could make an electric piano sound much cooler. We're more interested in the sound side of things, but I'm going to do my best to play little parts and kind of show what you can do. So I'm going to put that mode off, and we'll get back to that later. That is the kind of extended mode. But basically, you have the electric piano, and if you don't go into the extended mode to change the settings, you've just got a volume and vibrato, and this is how the original piano came. Now, of course, originally, you could get a stock piano, right? But you could modify things. You could move where the pickups were. You could modify kind of the rate of the vibrato and stuff by changing components. But I mean, it's not a common practice. But it was done, and then Rhodes was done too, and there were people like that came along and modified things. So what that advanced menu does, which we will get into later, is basically do all those things. It's kind of reconstruct it in a different way. So we're going to go to the actual default. I just changed the default so you can hear the basic thing. The other cool feature that Arturia's got is you've got 3 different output modes. Now I'm going to make the window up here. You've got this kind of stuff. So down here, you have a few little global settings, MIDI channel and all that, your kind of basic routing. But what you also have is this output, and it's a little bit small, which is a bit annoying. You can change the size, but this kind of window is the correct size for my monitor. And you can go direct. So this would be if you plug the piano into a DI. Now you might think, well, that's going to be the most sound of the piano. But what was common, of course, during gigs and such is to use guitar amps, because guitar amps were really the only amps. We call them guitar amps now, but a lot of these amps that were designed for guitar were also sort of designed as PA systems and keyboard amps as well. If you look at something like the Vox, it had 6 inputs. Like the Vox AC30 has 6 inputs, and it's intended to stick the whole band in. Of course, in practice, it doesn't really work like that. But this also gives you that amp, so you can change between a few different American amps, such as the Blackface, the Tweed, and a 4x12 half stack. I believe that's just changing the cabinet. The actual amp itself, I'm assuming it's based on some kind of Fender, and you can change the mic. And you also have a Leslie cab. So, of course, Leslies were famous for being used with organs, but you could use them with guitars, you could use them with keyboards as well. As long as you had the right kind of signal going in, they were tube amplifier, and some were solid state as well, feeding into a rotating horn. So, yes, you have the option of Leslie, amp, and direct, which is really cool because you can do that. And of course, you can just use the direct sound and then use your own plugins. You also have a bunch of stomp boxes, which is also very common for the piano player. So as with guitars, the electric pianos kind of weren't going for realism of what a real piano sounds like. It was going for its own kind of sound. So you've got chorus, phaser, flanger, and delay, as well as this kind of reverb unit over here. Yeah, so basically what you'd kind of expect to have for your classic electric piano sounds. So I'm going to turn off the chorus and delay and turn down the reverb. Mix is down there. So this is the kind of default. So you can hear there's mechanical noise that's emulated. You can hear that kind of typical Wurli sound. Now, I haven't compared this to sample-based stuff. The advantage it has over sample-based is the amount you can control it, and it does kind of doesn't have that sample sound where you can hear the sample being played. Now, of course, some may argue there's more realism to samples. And the thing with samples, it is the exact recreation of that sound hitting that key at that velocity on that piece of equipment on that chain, which is great if you want exactly that. But I find sometimes it doesn't meld as much in as these kind of more algorithm-based plugins, because while it might sound more realistic to that rig, if you were to get an actual Wurli in, you'd set it up for your recording how you would do it. You wouldn't set it up how some other tech would do it for a different recording with someone else, like any instrument, you know. That's why electric guitar samples never work, because no one plays guitar the same. It's very emotive and such. So I do like this approach, even if it is at the kind of lack of maybe as much mojo sometimes. But you can add a bit more mojo with your own plugins and stuff as well. So it's a different approach, but I kind of like it. So let's just go through some of the basics. So volume, obviously. Turn it up, turn it down. Vibrato, which is more of a tremolo. Now, the rate is controlled in the advanced menu, which I said we'll get to later. But yeah, you've got your basic kind of tremolo, which is very popular and came in at a lot of these kind of electric pianos and various other types of instruments of the time. You've also got your sustain pedal. So if you're like me and you've got an actual sustain pedal, which I don't know if I've got it plugged in, you can use that, or you can program it into your MIDI, or however you like. I think it's just a programmable control. Kind of got it. Now you've got this reverb. It's not the best reverb in the world, I don't think. It's a bit too subtle for me, but it gives you your basic mix and input controls. You also have a pre-delay which has feedback, and you can control some of the sound. So we put a little bit of pre-delay, long decay. You can start to get that kind of nice dreamy kind of thing. And then you've got the stop boxes. So you've got a chorus, which has your basic chorus controls, as well as stereo width, because these are all stereo, which is really, really cool too. So we turn down, we turn off the vibrato so you can really hear it. Turn down some of the reverb. You can go really kind of put that mix up. Make it more stereo, and you've got a nice huge stereo chorus. Now, chorus is very popular with electric pianos, especially as we went into the 80s. Now, there was certain people that modified electric pianos to give them chorus. Dyno My Roto. Basically, there were two products, and one was this kind of tone adjustments and mods, and the other was putting a tri-chorus in, which was really, really cool. And yeah, a lot of those famous sounds from the 80s and late 70s had a lot of chorus on them. So that might be a bit too much. And you got different types. The other thing is phaser, and you would have heard this a lot. Now, this isn't the best sounding phaser in to my ears. It is a little bit weird in the wave shape. I personally prefer I really like the small sound style phaser or the Phase 90, and those were used a lot, as well as many other phasers. I prefer to use a dedicated phaser plugin, but for those that don't have one, even though there is a few free ones, you can obviously use the built-in phaser. And that is your very 70s. Very 70s sound was the phaser. Kind of went out of fashion when chorus came in, but it was really big in the 70s. So you got your depth and you got stereo, you got feedback, you've got rate. Daft Punk were big users of phasers, mainly because they either sampled a lot of 70s stuff or were going for very 70s style sounds, especially in the kind of Discovery era. A lot of electric pianos in that too. So for a more modern context, if the 90s 2000s is modern for you, there were a lot of those sounds. And of course, with the disco comeback that's happened as well, very much the phaser thing. Flanger, we all know what a flanger is. If you don't, there's plenty of videos on flangers, but similar to a chorus, similar to phaser, just slightly different. And also really big in the 70s. And of course, you've got an analog delay. The only thing with this, as far as I can tell, there is no way of syncing the delay. I've tried all the different shortcuts that usually sync stuff. But analog delays you couldn't sync anyway, so it's a bit more realistic that way. And of course, you just set the delay time, mix, and the cool thing is it has modulation. So we turn the mix up and the feedback, and you've got a little bit of modulation like you had on the Memory Man and a lot of analog delays. I believe this might be influenced by the carbon copy, just by the way it looks, but it's really cool. So you can hear that modulation there, but this would be really cool if you want to go for that kind of, I guess, reggae and stuff too. Like dub kind of stuff, you can really push the feedback for that. So you can hear that modulation. Turn that down a little bit. Let's try that something else. And this, you can hear this tone here is kind of like a plus or minus high-end control. So I think it cuts a little bass up here. So it's like a tilt control, I guess, and it cuts high end there. So if we go here. Bit more like a kind of lo-fi tape thing. And you have volume pedal, which I believe you can control with any MIDI CC as well, like most of the Arturia plugins. So those were kind of the basic outline of how it works like this. We'll listen to the amp and Leslie in a second. Actually, no, we'll do that first. So I'll just show you the Leslie. It's got controls. It's a Leslie, you can stop it, you can go fast. You can obviously go slow. And you control the rate, the level, control the shape of the low end, you control the shape of the high end. So the horn and the woofer or drum, however you want to call it, that section of a Leslie. You can control all these things, which obviously would take a lot of mechanical work on a real Leslie. So if we pull that depth up, the width up there, the rate down a bit. Level, obviously I just distorted everything there. Now, I don't know if it's emulating any distortion you usually get from the tube amp feeding a Leslie, I should say. I don't think it does that, but of course you could then use a different amp plugin in your own Leslie. You can do a lot of things out of the box. We're really talking about what you can do in the box. In the box being the actual plugin. This is a nice and stereo and of course fast. Now I believe that's also CC controllable. I think at the moment the mod, not exactly sure what the mod wheel controls. In these plugins it controls different. I think the mod might control vibrato. Let me just try that. Doesn't seem to control, but I think as well you can assign to CC. And this allows you to get, you know, your very 70s kind of prog stuff. Let's just turn the feedback time a little bit down. Here we go. Oh, it's getting away from me there. You know what I was going for there. Don't really want to get any copyright issues. And plus I don't know how to play it. I'm, like I said, not a good keyboardist. So that is basically all the effects and the simple part. Let's have a look at the more intense part. Now this is where you open up your Wurlitzer and you mod the shit out of it. And that's basically what you're doing. So you've got an equalizer over here, which is your kind of 10 band, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 band equalizer, which really controls your tone. So let's just go back to direct so you can hear what's going on. So of course you can equalize it completely different, and this gives you a very different kind of tone. Of course, you can use equalizer afterwards. I don't know where this place in the chain. I don't know if it's in the creation side, but it does give you a lot of control over a kind of tone you're going for. You know, something like that, real mid-rangey and bright, or something kind of dark. I'm just kind of messing with the controls. You can obviously be more subtle than me. Oh, that's just going to be a bit loud and distorted. Let's go. So if we kind of go, I'm just going to reload default and turn the effects off. We can move on. So you got volume and vibrato, which we already know is on the front panel. Then you have control over the vibrato rate. So if we turn the vibrato up, you can really hear what it does there. I mean, that's way too fast. And that's kind of like almost impossibly slow. But you can find kind of maybe time it's your song or get a different kind of groove that works for your playing. So that's all kind of basic, and this is where you get into the emulation side, which is really cool. So the first control is pickup distance, and this is how far the pickup is away from the reeds. Now, if you think about, say, a guitar, how it's got different pickup positions and how they sound different, it's not too dissimilar to this. The difference in distance makes a difference with the pickup, the angle, where it is, all that kind of thing. So the pickup distance is a really cool feature to have. So we turn the vibrato off. So it's like straight up. Get further away, gets a bit more mellow, a bit more round, has a little bit of a kind of more bell-like quality. We play up a bit high, you might hear that. So you hear it's a more sharp, more kind of cutting. It's subtle, but it really does something there. So the next one is pickup axis. So if we go put this there, this is the angle that the pickup is on. And of course, like if you've ever been in a speaker and gone on an angle, you can hear how the different angles at different frequencies as they spread out sound different. So you can hear here it's really kind of nasal and thin. And there it's really direct and got that fat sound and everything kind of in between. So between those two controls, you can really control how it is picking up the emulated reads and what kind of sound you're getting. Then you've got impedance, and our impedance controls kind of how the actual impedance goes into the amp, and this will control a few features as far as the harmonic content goes and kind of your EQ sort of. Kind of like using different guitar leads or rolling down your tone knobs sort of. I'd make guitar references because a lot of people kind of understand the basics of guitar. Again, very subtle, does make a difference. And next you've got harmonic variation, and this is basically how it is creating these reads, and you can get some really non-Wurlitzer kind of stuff with this. It's really cool. So default is set on mid frequency boost, not default, not sure why. I guess that is the more Wurlitzer sound. But if you go default, you can hear very different harmonic kind of content there. Low end boost has got more low end, obviously. If we go down an octave lower, you might be able to hear that better. Let's go pick up distance closer and axis close. So you can hear how it's a lot fatter and a lot softer. You have organ harmonics, which give you, obviously, harmonics that sound a bit more organ, a bit more sine wavy. Which is really cool, because you've got that attack of a electric piano, but almost organ-like sound there. Harsh high end, which is a much more brash kind of sound. Which is very similar to a lot of FM synthesis stuff, and I believe they could be using FM synthesis in this to do the emulation, I'm not exactly sure. Dark Wurli, dark obviously. Which is good for your really kind of moody, more jazzy stuff. A weird chord I ended on there. Mid-frequency boost we've already heard, and that's kind of, to me, my ears, that is your classic Wurli sound. You have boost second and third, which is a very common organ technique. Quite subtle. And you have digital FM oddity, which is a very FM sounding thing. Very reminiscent of the 80s FM pianos. Let's try just a little bit of reverb, just because I really want to hear this. A little bit more high end. Let's try D. So very cool kind of effect there. Now at the bottom, you have dynamics, which controls, of course, the dynamics. Playing soft to loud. So it really shows, kind of emulates what the dynamics do as far as the frequency response. Then you've got octave stretch, which is in nearly all of Arturia's plugins. And this is where it's tuning the octaves based on stretch tuning or traditional tuning. And it kind of changes what's in pitch. So if we go to lower stuff, I think it was mainly lower. You can hear 300%. You kind of sound like you're not in tune. Obviously 300% is too much, so 95 is a bit low. Just a quick way to adjust the kind of micro tuning of the instrument depending on what kind of tonal aspect you're going for. Now, there's a lot of theory into this, and I won't delve into that. It's definitely a subject for a different time. But yes, micro tuning is very much a cool thing in Arturia where you can kind of get the sound of that. And then you've got the hammer sound. So you've got the hammer hardness and noise. Let's go back up to higher pitches. You can hear it. So hammer hardness is obviously how hard the hammers are. And this is another mod that happened to a lot of electric pianos, is to give it that bright in-your-face sound by changing where the hammers were, how they hit, and all this kind of thing, and what they were made of. So yeah, if you want that more transient, aggressive thing, turn it up. Let's turn that reverb down. It's more piano-y, I guess. Then you got the hammer noise, which is the noise, and the note off noise. If you notice, there's a noise when I pull off the note. Let's change this to default. Subtle, but you can hear it, and there's also sustain pedal noise. So that's basically all the features. A lot of them, I've kind of gone through everything one by one. Hopefully there's been enough sound so far so you kind of get the idea of what you can do with this. But we're going to finish off by going through a bunch of presets. I'm going to play them as best you can so you can really hear if this is the plugin for you. So let's just start with Tramp. Yep, that is very trampy. Ambient drone. I should have mentioned there is other effects too. I did forget to go through that when I saw the presets. Now, yes, there is also overdrive, vocal filter, and a few other things. I don't want to go too in depth with the effects because, yeah, I want to listen to the presets, but you'll be able to hear the effects, and like anything, you can just experiment yourself. Talking about effects, let's just move all the way to TalkBox just for fun. Okay, let's just try Asia. I assume they mean the band, but they could mean the continent. I think they mean the continent. Let's just try something a little bit more Asian, I guess. that was quite terrible, but it was just something. FM vocal. I'm just choosing random ones that sound cool, of course. I think you can demo the plugin for 14 days or 30 days. So jump on the demo if you want to listen to it a bit more of your own, you playing yourself. These talkbox filter ones are... You get the picture, that was cool. Funky wah, of course, auto wahs are also cool. Oh, this is used as a flanger. Cool. Amplified Wurli. We haven't really gone much into the amp. As I said, it's just an amp plugin with different cabinets. But let's use the presets to show us what the amp's doing. Let's just ram that reverb up. Cool. Amplified Wurli, I like it. So we'll do a couple more. Let's have a look. Rhodes. There is a Rhodes plugin, but let's pretend this is a Rhodes just for the sake. Does sound quite Rhodes-like. Cool. I say cool way too often, and I'm sorry about that. We'll try two more. Pink Echoes. We all know what this is trying to be. I don't know how to actually play this song. I'm just going to play something reminiscent. Very cool preset. I like it. Let's do one more and we'll go psychedelic, because who doesn't like psychedelic? Wrong note. So that has been Wurli V. I'm going to bring the video to an end there. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out other videos. I'm going to be doing more Arturia stuff, and I will see you next time.